It's the Craggy Rugby Podcast. We're into the big week. The big week. Ireland have made it through to the quarterfinals yet again. I think it's 6 times in 8 that they're there, and we're going to preview that. We're going to have a quick review of the Scotland game. We'll talk about the women's team that's been picked for the WXV tournament, and we'll get the fans' view from Marc O'Connor. I'm in Murty Rabbits with Linley MacKenzie. Linley, how are you enjoying the World Cup so far?
It's an interesting tournament this year, isn't it? I suppose I'm a little bit ambivalent about it, and in two minds about when I listen to the arguments for and against, all the teams that are in the pools and the newcomers to rugby and the lesser teams who are struggling, and I have thought about that, and there's a lot of people who say they shouldn't be there at all. It is a World Cup.
Yeah.
I think they deserve to be there.
Yeah.
I think they can only get better by playing in World Cups against opposition. And yes, it's obviously pretty simple that there are basically two tiers in the world.
Yeah.
There's a top tier and there's a bottom tier. And so while I'm a little bit ambivalent about the actual entire tournament, maybe it's just that I OD on rugby sometimes, I do think that it is an occasion where those teams get the opportunity which they wouldn't otherwise do, because let's face it, they're the ones.
It's a close shot.
It's always the lesser teams who have to travel.
Yes.
Who have to travel.
Absolutely.
So you're not going to get a South African team possibly come over and play. Well, you might play Fiji or that sort of thing. So I think in that respect, I think it is a World Cup, and I think they deserve to be there. And I think they can only get better. And I think that's actually evidenced by the fact that Fiji has got through to the quarterfinals.
Yes, absolutely. Even though they were beaten by Portugal, which was one of the results of the tournament, I thought was amazing.
Well, that just goes to show, doesn't it? And that's what World Cups are all about.
Yeah, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a bit more of that. So talking about, the atmosphere that we're seeing and the buzz about it, here's our resident fan in Paris, Marc O'Connor, chatting to me about what went on last weekend and how things are beginning to slowly build up for this enormous match coming up at the weekend. Marc, you've I assume you've seen every site in Paris at this stage. You've been there so long and had another great weekend last weekend.
Yeah, absolutely, Alan. It's continuing to be a fantastic tour of France for me. I think the last time we were talking post the South Africa match in Ireland, South Africa, I've just been to the Invalids Museum. I actually did a second trip to the Invalids Museum, the Military History Museum, because there's so much to do there. And for the second time, I got kicked out of there because it was closing, and I still haven't finished the damn thing. So it's the most comprehensive museum I've ever been through. Like, honestly, I could go a third time and just about get everything done. That's where Napoleon's buried and the tomb and everything. So it's well worth a look anyway.
I'm assuming after Ireland we win this weekend, you're going to have to stay on for another week, and then you'll get your chance.
Well, that's the thing. The URC's coming back, so priorities. I want to be back in the sports ground for the same Saturday that I'm expecting Ireland to be in a semi-final. So it's.
Oh, right, fair enough. I'm glad to see you've got your priorities right, but certainly last weekend seemed to be pretty amazing. It seemed even better than the previous weekend.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, it was a funny build-up for it, because obviously the way the South Africa match went, everyone knows at this stage. Everyone's probably sick of hearing how amazing the atmosphere was, and anyone who wasn't there is probably feeling a bit pissed off at this stage that people are still going on about it, of course. But no, I mean, coming up to that match, in terms of the atmosphere side, I was really looking forward to it, obviously, but I was nervous. This entire World Cup, I was convinced that people were underestimating Scotland to a crazy degree. And like the Irish attendance, I'm sure everyone saw the press conference with James Lowe talking about they were expecting 60,000 Irish supporters.
Yeah.
Honestly, it felt like more. It felt like it was at least 70,000 Irish supporters. Like, and the Scottish fans who were there were in full form and the kilts on and everything, and made themselves known. But for every navy jersey I saw, I swear there was 9 or 10 green ones. It was like a home match. It really was. It was even better than a home match. The atmosphere was consistently loud, so it was even better than a match in the Aviva, really. But I was convinced that it was going to be an extremely tough match. I was confident that Ireland could do it, but I was so nervous. I mean, the whole South Africa match, I was a ball of tension and anxiety. And I know the way the match went, because it went to the final whistle, right down to the final whistle. It was easy to be tense for it, but I was knots in my stomach coming up to that Scotland game. I was sure it was going to be a 3-pointer in it in the end. It was going to be really close. They put it right up to us, and full respect to the Scots, because they have been generally quite good over the last 4 years, generally. And then after that, whatever, was it 92nd try from low, I relaxed, and you could feel the whole stadium, even the few pessimistic, cynical folk like myself, you could feel it started to relax, and then the atmosphere kicked off, and I was a little bit worried that people would have too much of an expectation for the atmosphere to live up to the South Africa match, but honestly, it was right up there. It didn't have the same, tension to it, but it was more of like a party, and like people were just loving it. And even the Scots beside me, at about 35 minutes in, they just started trying to enjoy the occasion, because they kind of figured the team wasn't really getting out of the hole they dug themselves in. But look, it was an incredible atmosphere, similar to what we did for the South Africa match. We were there extremely early. The organisers smartly opened the grounds about an hour earlier, again, like they did for the South Africa match for Stade de France, and they had England Samoa on the big screen there. So that was the best way to tee it up, because I'm sure you can imagine every single fan, any semblance of heritage outside of England, were going nuts for that match, because it was just brilliant. It was, so they had on the big screens, everyone going wild for it. The moment Owen Farrell's kick timed out, I think people cheered as loud as any Irish try that came on that night. So that was a nice way to kind of tee up the evening. But the atmosphere right through was just incredible. The fans in full voice. Cranberries was activated the second full-time whistle was blown. Zombie kicked in. It was almost almost pointed that was played instantly as loud as possible. But whoever was the MC for the match definitely did their homework, because they had everything going. They had, Dirty Old Town was playing away. It was, they threw in a little bit of U2 for good measure, but it was brilliant, and everyone was just having such a great time. It's I mean, without trying to be sounding like I'm bigging the whole thing up too much, there has been such a unique and incredible buzz around this team, and there's been a lot of talk from what I followed across different media outlets that people are so happy to be getting to an Irish game, because it's been easier to get tickets to a World Cup than it has been for a Six Nations match, which is pretty awful in itself. But there's been such a unique buzz with this, because obviously a World Cup is a party atmosphere, but there's a lot of fans who are there who seem to be very grateful they've been able to go to a game, So it's it was incredible though.
What's the buzz around town? I assume most of the Irish have left at this stage, and Paris has gone back to normal for a few days.
Yeah, it's eased up a little bit, like the green jerseys certainly started to appear at the later stage of last week, and now it's normal service resumed, everything back to normal. Pretty much since Sunday. There was a lot of groggy Irish heads around the place on Sunday trying to find somewhere to watch the Argentina-Japan match, and awfully, actually, the fan zone in Paris City didn't open for that game, which was kind of mind-boggling, to be honest. I can go on a rant about the organisation side of the World Cup, to be honest, because that has really left so much to be desired. But when everything has worked, it's been brilliant, So I did end up outside Kitty O'Shea's with a bunch of Irish supporters and Japanese supporters trying to find a seat to watch that match, and ended up watching it on, a VPN to Virgin Media player on a phone outside the pub, leaning against a table just to get something in. But the green jerseys are very much dispersed at this stage. But it's been a nice one. I've been repping the IRFU merch here and there, walking around the city, and similar to post the South Africa match, any random French fan will give you the nod or give you the "Go Ireland" kind of thing. The eyeballs are still very much on it. I mean, the numbers at home have been incredible, but the French figures have also been excellent for this World Cup.
You're booked in you have your ticket. You're no issues.
I do. I'm all set. Yeah, no, we got an Ireland pack, which was for all the Ireland games, the pool stages, and then a new one that they've brought in for this World Cup. It was a quarter-final allocation. So whichever quarter the team qualified for, whether it was the Saturday or the Sunday one, it was going to be in Saint-Denis and Stade de France either way.
Right.
And
Excellent.
We were allocated for it. And the really nice one, I think, which I had to make sure this wasn't a scam when my friend sorted these tickets. The nice one was that, touch wood, if Ireland hadn't qualified, you actually are refunded the amount that the quarterfinal would have cost. So At
Wow.
least it's a few euro towards a cross on to get over the woes of losing out on
Absolutely.
knockout place. But it's an incredible pack. Yeah, I've met a few people who've gotten their hands on it, and it also didn't break the bank. It wasn't a very VIP
Over the
type thing to
top.
get.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
obtainable if you were in a pre-sale. I mean, we've had tickets for almost 3 years. We planned in
Right.
advance for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a fantastic pack. I mean, we all remember different matches in the past. I think it was the 2015 New Zealand versus France in the quarterfinal, the World Cup in England, and there was
Yes, I remember well.
a large contingent of Irish fans there who didn't think
Yeah.
Ireland would top the pool. So at least it gives a bit of wiggle room for the
Yeah.
organisers to have more of the fans of each team at the matches, and the swapping of tickets
Yeah.
still goes on, of course, as well. But it's
Yeah.
a great idea. I think it's one of the few pluses I'll give the organisation side for this World Cup so far. Honestly, it's brilliant. We're so excited for the Saturday. I've never seen the All Blacks live myself,
Right.
so I
Very
think
good.
I'm in for a
bit of a
treat with it.
treat.
My Kiwi team is the Chiefs, and I'm hoping to
Right.
see Linley MacKenzie involved in that 23. So that'll be a fun one to watch for sure. Anyways.
It will indeed. But before we go, we have to finally we have to make sure, like, was your mom at the last game, and is she going to the next one? Because that's the important thing people want to know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, my whole trip has been a revolving cast of different people joining because of the location. With this being in France, everyone's gotten flights or Eurostars over
Yeah.
and making do with it. My mum is coming to the match this weekend. She's getting in
Excellent.
on Friday. We have a friend of the family who missed out on the first week in Bordeaux. The poor thing came down with COVID the day before she was
Oh,
flying.
no.
So they're heading to the match, which is brilliant. I mean, as soon as she was on her flight back from Bordeaux, she knew she'd have to be coming back. So
Right.
we'll have a great time with that. There's a huge gang of us over for this. There's been a few of us based here in Paris for the whole run from the South Africa game onwards. But this is the last week now. I'm heading back Tuesday next week after the quarterfinal weekend. But I'm hoping to be heading back a very happy Irishman, and looking forward to Connacht coming back too. So
Absolutely. And what we'll do then is we'll get you live on a live podcast in Connacht. We'll catch up with you in the sports ground and get to meet you with a live podcast part of the game, because as you say, Connacht are back next week. We'll be back into our normal pre-match weeks with our new head coach, Pete Wilkins, and we'll be interested to see what players are thrown up first. But looking forward to that, and we're looking forward to meeting you when you get over here next week. When you get home, I should say, next week.
Absolutely. We'll see Big Joe Joyce tearing up trees in the sports ground, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So
yeah, it should be brilliant. That's great stuff. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Alan. Cheers.
Yeah, great stuff as always from Mark. We'll be, as you said at the end, we'll be looking to get to him in person, because he's coming home for the important rugby next week, when the URC starts back, and we get to see some live rugby. Hopefully Ireland will have a game that first day when Connacht take on the Ospreys next Saturday week. But we'll talk to Mark at that stage. Ireland-Scotland. William is on his travels. He's enjoying a quick break before the World Cup comes on. So I spoke to him earlier on today. He's in Bratislava, I think it was, at the moment. He's travelling around the eastern part of Europe to see how the World Cup is going in that part of the world. And here's my chat with him. Okay, I'm sitting here with William. You're on your travels, William. You're in Central Europe somewhere.
Yeah, I'm in Bratislava, Alan, capital of the Slovakian state. Arrived here on Monday after a few days in Budapest, where I watched the Ireland-Scotland game. And it's a nice spot on the Danube again. Sitting on my balcony in the apartment we're in. A bit cold this morning, but this is supposed to burn off and get to 26 degrees this afternoon. And just a nice little break before the well, it seems like the rugby season's been going since August, because we started with the women. But of course, the URC getting closer and closer next week. We'll be a week out from the start of that.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I've just been chatting to Mark. He's in Paris. I had been in Turin. I was at a rowing camp for they call Crew Blue. If anyone wants to look it up, Crew Blue. We help out with disability rowing. So we had a whole lot of our athletes on the river Po, and managed to watch the game in the Huntsman, as it turns out. So just a nice little sort of combination. And we had some great crack. We sat down the back. We were pushed all the way down the back because it was the same day as Juventus were playing Torino. So
But that match did finish before our game started, and all the soccer people just got up and left. But then Milan were playing Roma, I think. So that game was coming on, and we said, "Well, are you going to show our game?" They said, "Yeah," and they pushed us into there was loads of TVs. Like they'd obviously brought more in for the derby, but everyone just got up as soon as the final whistle went. The whole pub just emptied. So we sat down in one of the main rooms. They said, "No, into the next room." So we went to the next room. No, into the next room. 4 rooms down the back, we found a spot. So there was 10 or 15 of us there, and there was 4 Italians there, and they were sort of sitting there looking at us, and everything was quiet. And then the anthems come on. I started belting into Ireland's call. But 4 words into it, nobody had joined me. I was beginning to worry. Then the rest of them all just piled in, started joining in. The 4 Italians got up and walked away. Realized it was going to be a bit of a noisy atmosphere, which it was for about 10 minutes, and then it was pretty obvious Ireland were going to win. So, what about you? Where did you manage to procure?
Yeah, I managed to watch it in the apartment.
Very good.
Which was a bit quieter than yourself. I thought Ireland would win. I didn't think they'd win that easily. I think on Galway Bay the night before for the preview, I'd said Scotland are all mouth and no trousers. Well, I think that was pretty much proven on Saturday. I think they starting to try to wind up Ireland on Thursday. It obviously Peter O'Mahony used that, and look, it was a very good, solid, competent performance. Got a little bit distracted in the second half, and when players come on and you're 36-0 ahead, it's the bench. Jack Crowley, Conor Murray did okay. I think the forwards were a little bit switched off, but look, the job was done. They got the win easily, and it's roll on to next Saturday now. Back in it's their new home, Stade de France. That's Ireland's new home ground.
It certainly seems that way. It certainly, it looks incredible on the television, as we heard from Marc. It was pretty amazing to be there as well, and it's as though yes, we didn't get this World Cup, but we're making it our own.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see on Saturday night what the distribution of tickets is. There's apparently a lot of tickets available for England-Fiji. That hasn't quite picked up from the other levels. Yeah. But I think our game is pretty much, it's sold out. So it'll be interesting to see. But the split, there's going to be more Irish than Kiwis there by a long way.
Yeah, you would have thought so. And as I think it's been mentioned a few times, the Irish are world class at getting hold of tickets.
Yeah, it's a bit of an Italian 90 vibe, actually.
It certainly feels that way. I don't know if you've seen the thing about the viewing figures. At 1.4 million people tuned in at one stage, 1.3 million, something like that, which is unheard of for a sporting.
Yeah, it's got attention. No interest here, I can tell you, or in Budapest. Although on Sunday in Budapest, I went horse racing to Kimsem Park, which was a beautiful racetrack, just on the outskirts. But it's also the home of Hungarian men's and women's international rugby.
Oh, right.
They share the facility. Now, I couldn't actually see any sign of any rugby stuff anywhere, but it's a very big park.
Right.
With a grass and an artificial racetrack. And it was a nice afternoon's racing, free admission, but there's a big sign outside the home of the Hungarian international rugby team. So maybe they were interested in the match, but certainly it didn't make the local news, put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. It was, has to be said, there was something similar in Turin, although there was a pub called the Six Nations, which did have plenty of rugby interest, and there was at the matches there was definitely little pockets of fans around the place, so there was a little bit of interest, but not a whole hell of a lot. But the taxi driver did know about as we arrived over our France had been the night before, and he was aware of the fact that Italy were no good.
But, well, they're certainly struggling at the moment, and Kieran Crowley has left with a shot across the bows. There's a lot of politics involved in that, but they've got to sort themselves out. When you see what Portugal are up to, it does not make Italy's performance in this World Cup anything other than nightmarish, really.
Well, it also leaves World Rugby with this new competition they have after the World Cup looking a bit elitist, that's to say the least. And that something will have to change somewhere along the way.
Yeah, I'm sure that won't worry them. But it was interesting. But Italy didn't come out of that with much any positives, really. They've won their 2 games, which they always do, and they've qualified for the next World Cup. But disappointing. We've had 5 weeks. We had 5 weeks and 2 days, and I got to be honest, I didn't watch a whole hell of a lot of it. I watched a fair bit of it. But some of the mismatches,
much like yourself, when I was given the opportunity to go away and help with this camp, once I saw it wasn't affecting the URC season, I went, yeah, I'm there.
Yeah, because
bothered about the first bits, apart from the Ireland and South Africa game, I really wasn't bothered about the rest of the world.
Yeah, these 96 points to whatever it is games are hopeless. But it's now changed, because when you lose this time, you go home, so there's no second chances. I think one of the concerns is the way it was set up for Ireland. There was no chance for them to really run a game with an under-strength team. They had to go full in. They had to get Sexton. They had to get all fired up for all of the games. The week's break should have helped. And it's hard to know what to say about Saturday's game, because I'm sure it was physical at times, but I mean, Ireland were in charge of it. But this is when you're into...
They substituted quite early. Like, a lot of the guys only played 44, 45, 46 minutes.
Absolutely, and they were dead right to do that. I think they'll be a little concerned that when the bench, as I've just said, the forwards, when they came on, maybe didn't get up to the pace of it. But the story is that they, look, they've won 17 games in a row. So essentially, they're doing something right, and there's nothing to say that they won't be able to substitute players in as required on Saturday. But it's a big game, and everybody's going to have to be switched on 100% for this. There's no, New Zealand maybe don't have the aura that they've had in the past, but they're still a very good rugby team.
And I see we're 2-point favourites for this match.
I think we would be, but I mean, 2 points kind of suggests the bookies aren't really sure.
The South Africa France only 1 point game, so
yeah, they're hedging their bets, and that's fair enough. These are the 4 best sides in the world. Clearly, the other side of the draw, which we're all now sick of listening to, but the other side of the draw is a lot weaker.
Wales are 4-point favourites, and England are 7-point favourites. So,
talk quickly on that. I think Wales will beat Argentina, because I think they have a better system. England Fiji's a funny one. Fiji were disappointed the other night. Fair play to Portugal. They played brilliantly. They deserved their win. But you kind of wonder where Fiji's head was, that the pressure got to them.
Yes.
I think they're capable of beating England if they go out and play really well. But if they don't start well and England just grind away, we all know how England are going to play. So I fancy England for that one. France, South Africa, I'm going to call that for France. It's interesting, Keith Earl said yesterday he didn't think Joe Schmidt would know much about this Ireland team. I agree with that. He's gone a long time. I mean, they're trying to push this thing. Joe Schmidt has the inside track. I'm thinking he hasn't got an inside track. He's gone years ago, and this Ireland team has moved on mentally and skills wise. They're a better side. Now, that's not criticising him. He left Irish rugby in a great state. But
he brought it. Well, he set the foundation for what we're seeing today. There's no question.
Yes. Yeah.
And set the belief and the skill levels and everything, set everything in place. We were just very lucky we had Andy Farrell to take it and bring it on to the next level.
Correct. And the players bought into Farrell, but then they knew him. You see, when you get continuation like that, that's a big help, because they weren't introduced to a new coach. They knew the guy, he'd been there. So, couple of years. I mean, Ireland's quarterfinal record, they've had 9 goals. Well, they've only had 7 because they didn't get out of the group twice. And they've had 7 losses out of 7. So is there a mental
hammered? Like, they were hammered. I think it was they're not simple losses. They were hammered in practically every one of them.
With the exception of the famous Gordon Hamilton try game against Australia in 91.
That's what I was going to go back and say, apart from the Australia game. But
that's the only one. But I mean, New Zealand have clouted us. France have clouted us. Argentina have clouted us in these games.
Yeah.
But I think there's a different mindset in this team. I think they're and Wales, yes. Yeah. Pity you had to bring that one up.
Yeah, I know.
but that's what's happened to them. But I don't think if they lose on Saturday night that they will lose that way. I think they will just be beaten.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. This is going to be all in, because if they do lose this one and people say, "Oh, it's the same old out," only if we get blown away will it be the same old. Other
yes.
than that, it'll be we put ourselves in a position where we're favourites against New Zealand, which is unheard of in a World Cup.
Yeah, and they're talking about us now as if they actually believe we're as good as them. That's never happened before.
No,
there's no.
Their fans and the press are all saying that.
Yeah, there's no sort of Ireland are they're very plucky or they're this or they're that. There's an acceptance.
They play with passion. And, you get a good game. No, it's none of that now. It's all about the skill levels, and they're talking about players. They know the players' names.
Yeah,
it's great. It's great.
It is. Have we kept anything back? I thought we changed a few things up on Saturday. Some of our launch plays were a bit different. Is there more to come? Hopefully. I think we might have them in the scrum lineouts. Important that we keep those. 100% against Scotland. That's what you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and the defence. For me, it's all about the defence. That defensive set.
Yeah.
Where the Scots started on our 5 metre line and ended up outside the 22. I just turned around to the pub and said, "That's it, guys. We've won." And we were only 5-0 up at the time, and they're going, "No." I said, "No, we've won.
We've won. Yeah,
it's there. It's over. It's only a matter about how much we win this game."
Yeah, I wrote that in my notes for thing I was doing with Galway Bay on Sunday about that defensive set. And Scotland went through 18 phases and lost 20 meters, and you're going, "Nah, that's it. You're in real bother here." They could do that to New Zealand as well. I think if I think New Zealand want a fast start. They are concerned about what we can do. So look, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be an absolute cracker. But I'll call it. I think Ireland will win it. I think they're good enough to win it. If they get to the same level of physicality as they did against South Africa and the same accuracy as they did against Scotland, they'll win it.
Okay, we were talking about a World Cup, Linley, but obviously in Eastern Europe, or the part of Europe William's in, they have no idea what's on in Italy and Northern Italy. They were slightly aware of it. Certainly the Irish pubs were very aware of it, but not much else was going on. But in France, it seems as though it's really being taken on board, and there's massive crowds at every game.
Well, I think the situation of France is great for sort of European rugby, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, it's very accessible. So, obviously, that's why you see so many Irish fans over there. Unfortunately, we're not there. But, I think that France is a rugby nation.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very central place to have it. And I think they're always very good hosts. Mm-hmm. Certainly, they are very good hosts when we've ever gone to play European matches there.
Even in Brive.
Yes, especially in Brive.
Especially in Brive, yeah.
So I think it's been a very from where I'm sitting on the sidelines. It's a, or should I say, city these days?
Yes.
It's it's been a very. I think it's been a great World Cup, an enjoyable World Cup.
Yeah.
It is quite long. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I find about it. It is quite long, and you kind of you can easily skip a couple of matches in between if you haven't.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're not, sitting by the sofa the whole time. So, look, it's a World Cup, and it's exciting, and it's getting closer and closer to more excitement, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the big weekend coming up this weekend. This is the one. Your home nation taking on the nation of you've been spent quite a long time over the last few years. So it must be tough. Your house is split, I'd say.
Absolutely divided. Well, not absolutely divided.
Right.
It's a funny thing. I was asked this question recently. Who I was going to be supporting.
Sorry, that's the equipment falling. The equipment falling here, and I haven't got it set up right. Sorry about that.
Who I was going to be supporting this weekend, and I just said, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "Well, New Zealand, of course." And this person looked at me half aghast that how could I support the land of my birth and my upbringing for a country I have lived in for 30 plus years. It's kind of simple, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't understand that attitude at all. Like, yeah, okay, so you're here, but like you started your life on all the important bits of the early part of your life where it develops you, where you sort of learn everything about life to start with, and then take with you for the rest of it. That's the land of your birth. You have to look after your
and
own
remember,
cheer
like,
for
you
your
know,
own.
New Zealand is a country that is made up of a lot of people from all over the world. I mean, my father was born in Scotland and emigrated to New Zealand, and
Right.
you know, there's English in my blood, and
Yeah.
you know, so growing up in New Zealand is a very special place, I believe, still.
Yes.
To grow up in, and the fact that it is so isolated makes you probably even more, shall we say, makes you even more patriotic and proud. I suppose it's a little bit different now because the world is a different place, and we travel,
Yeah.
and we travel much more, and you know, but. Growing up in New Zealand, it is almost like this little country
Yes.
at the bottom of the world,
Yes.
you know, unknown, possibly except for the famous All Blacks. And
Yes.
so, obviously, you know, New Zealanders take great pride
Yes.
in that fact that they can compete with the rest of the world on the world stage.
Yeah.
You know, we've also had sailing, you know, you only have to think of America's Cup, you know, and Black Magic. And,
Yeah.
you know, New Zealanders are a very, very proud nation of what they can achieve on the world stage because they're such a small country at the bottom of the earth.
Yeah, and I suppose Irish people feel the same way because we're on the edge of Europe. We're the last stop before America, and there's a very similar feel to that, and it is so far away. Like when we came back from the Lions tour, like it took us nearly 24 hours to come home. It was like a long time. That was back in 2005, which didn't help with the Lions' performances that year. But you know what I mean. You don't really. On the way out, we didn't notice it was quite as far because we were so excited.
Yeah.
But on the way home, it was like, wow, that's really far away. And so, yes, you would take pride in whatever you get in those things. And it's going to be fascinating to see how they do on Saturday night because the pressure is on Ireland, but there's also a pressure on New Zealand because Ireland have never got past a World Cup quarter-final, so New Zealand have won it 3 times.
Well, as I said to someone when they did question me, I said, I really can't lose, can I? I mean, you know, yes, my heart is, you know, New Zealand, but if anyone's going to win the World Cup and it's not going to be New Zealand, then obviously I would be supporting the green, the boys in green.
Of course, which is and why not? That's the way you want it. Like, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens in the other quarterfinal, the other major quarterfinal. I'm going to call them. There's 2 major ones and there's 2 minor ones, especially with DuPont back. Like, that's incredible that DuPont can come back from a broken cheekbone 2.5 weeks after he's going to play rugby. I think that's astonishing.
Well, I suppose I'll leave that to the medics. You know, if he wants to play and if the medics believe he can play, there must be certain risks attached to it. But I'm not a medical person, so I won't go down that path. I do think that's going to be an extremely fascinating match. I look at the New Zealand and Ireland match, and I look at 2 teams who play similar rugby, both extremely ball in hand, fast pace.
Yeah.
And I look at the French match, and I look at South Africa, and I think the French have more to their bow than South Africans do. That's me personally. I like the way they play, you know, their matches. So that's a fascinating lineup.
They both like to kick an awful lot. Like, there could be quite some long kicking duels between them because neither side likes to do anything unless they're fairly deep in the opposition half, and they do that by applying pressure. But the South Africans won't be able to put the sort of pressure they're able to put on practically every other team in the world because the French are big men as well, and it should be fairly titanic on that front.
Yeah, so it's strange that these matches are coming at this time of the competition. You might have expected these to be the semi-finals.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
but they're not. So, you know, that's the way the draw has played out, and I know there's been a lot of complaints about it as well. You know, and possibly right.
Yes.
To be perfectly honest, but it is what it is now, and you just have to get on with it.
You do, and let's hope the World Rugby learn their lesson, and we don't get the same sort of too early a draw too early. Like this idea that you have to do it early because you have to plan this stuff early. The World Cup soccer draw only takes place 8 months before it, and there's an awful lot more involved with those, and there's a lot more teams, and they're bigger. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly why they did it, but anyway, let's leave that one to one side. The other semi-final or the other quarter-finals, England, Fiji. If Fiji get their act together, they could cause a huge upset. Like, I know they lost to Portugal at the weekend, but you got the feeling that they weren't trying that hard sort of. There was an element of it was just, let's just do enough to win the game.
Yeah, look, Fiji are very exciting players. I love watching Fiji.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole... I suppose, it's another thing about being part of the Pacific Islands, that there are so many Pacific Islands there, and Fiji have always been this exciting team to watch. Possibly not as disciplined as a lot of teams. They like their running rugby.
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to be difficult for them up against these English pack, basically.
Yeah.
And I think once again it's coming down to the differences that the advantage some teams have and the differences between teams. Fiji are a reasonably good size, but I don't think they have the same discipline as what...
No, and hopefully what we'll see is a bit more. I think the refereeing of Fiji players and how they get things might be a bit fairer in this one, especially after what happened in the Welsh game. I know some people have said, well, you go back and look at it, it wasn't that bad. But the reality is there was at least 2 Welsh players that should have been yellow carded on the goal line, which would have changed the whole game. And whether you like it or not, that's what happened. And there's been other instances where Tier 2 teams or tiers further down don't get the same level of refereeing that Tier 1s do, and hopefully we don't see anything like that at the weekend.
Well, absolutely, it's just good that a team outside the mainstream is in the quarterfinals at the stage, and I think that's brilliant for Fiji, and I think it's good for all the years that a lot of those small island nations have competed. The Tongas, the Samoas have competed, and I know Samoa's had been reasonably successful on the world stage as well, but I think it's a real plus for them because I think I think people don't actually realise that how small these nations are, where most of their players live and work, and the fact that unlike European countries, particularly who can play, it's much easier to play with one another. It's much more difficult in the Pacific Islands, and I think and going off tangent slightly, but I think that is one of the reasons why New Zealand rugby has suffered.
Yes.
Because since South Africa pulled out, of the competitions down there, that New Zealand and Australia has really had nobody to play against apart from themselves, and I think that is one reason why rugby down there is actually suffering.
It is, and hopefully they'll bring Fiji more on board and bring more of that physicality that they do. They'd be much more physical. About how they like to play the game and what they do, and
disciplined.
Disciplined. Well, they're getting better disciplined. They're playing even more structured rugby as well, which is great to see. And then, of course, you have two coaches coaching Argentina. You've got Warren Gatland, who we adore, obviously, as a former Connacht coach, and started his whole coaching career here with Galwegians, and would always be a massive fan of Gatti, and again showing his genius by bringing Wales into a quarter-final a week early, coming up against Michael Cheika in Argentina. So ex-Leinster coach, so there's always seems to be these Irish connections along the way, but that should be a fascinating game.
Yeah, I think it's a good matchup actually. I think it's possibly 2 teams who would have struggled to maybe even be in the quarterfinals if the draw had been slightly different. I think Warren taking over Wales knew that it was going to be a difficult job at that stage. They really hadn't been playing very well, and I think he probably did take a risk, but he took a risk because of his heart. And which some people may think that's a very strange thing coming from a coach, but I think it's where he got a great coaching leg up, coaching Wales, and he does have. I know that he has very strong feelings for Wales and what he's achieved there. And while I think he probably on one side of him might think it was madness actually taking over Wales at the moment, because they weren't really going very far. I think at least what he has possibly been able to do is maybe install some of the systems and to get them back on track and to
self-belief.
And to play. If they can play their systems and play to their strengths, then and imbue a bit of confidence in them. Because let's face it, they've always been there or thereabouts.
Oh, absolutely.
Against Argentina, I think discipline's going to be really important because I don't think the Argentinians are necessarily that.
Most disciplined either. No, they're
exactly.
Not. They
So I mean, I love the flair of Argentina, and we all do, But I think in this case, I think possibly the discipline of a Welsh team, might prevail.
Yeah, because it's the winner of that team that would hopefully be the team that, if Ireland do manage to beat New Zealand, that will be they're the opposition for the semi-final, which will be happening the following week when we'll be in the sports ground for the first time for the URC this season, which just seems crazy to be like almost the end of October before we're getting to see some live competitive rugby for Connacht. But that should be fascinating.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Actually, it's kind of been a long time without some local rugby to watch, isn't it? And the pre-season's all very well, but it's kind of been staggered. And Connacht were away; they were home for a couple of matches, and it's been kind of drawn out. Probably not good for preparing players either. At the same time, with such a long period between their last game and the new season starting.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that next week. We'll have plenty of audio, we'll have plenty of coaches and players and everything, and we'll get stuck into it. We'll have our preview of the season next week, because we haven't been able to preview the season because it's almost been impossible with the World Cup because it takes up so much time, and it's very difficult to preview a season when you really don't know who's going to be going where. Like you'd assume the Glasgow players, like Connacht play Ospreys the first week, so they'll definitely be missing all the Welsh players. Glasgow the second week. Can't imagine too many of the Scottish players will be back for that, even though they've been knocked out, because they'll need a break.
Absolutely, and we will be preparing, not to have our three, key World Cup players probably for quite some time, I would imagine.
Yeah, I can't see them getting in before December. To be honest, to be honest, I don't want it either. I want them to get their full-on break. There's a Six Nations to come up after the World Cup too.
Well, I think everyone's been prepared for that, and to be fair to Connacht and Pete Wilkins, I think the whole program, the pre-season program, has been sort of worked around the fact that they are going to start possibly the first couple of months or, even 3 months without those three key players, and that's normal and it's standard. And so it's really getting the players who are stepping into those shoes, up to that level. And there's a lot of young talent in that team.
There is. There's plenty of talent. It's just so sad that we lost Santiago. I was hoping he was just going to step into the shoes that Mac had left Finland. So hopefully, wishing him well. We haven't heard for a while exactly what's happening. I think he was going for his operation the last time we spoke to Pete, so we'll find out on Monday exactly where he is. And I'm hoping he's settling in well to Irish weather.
Well, that's a huge dent, and to be fair, and a huge loss for Connacht, having invested, in a player of that regard. And I don't know the ins and outs of it, and with this injury.
But let's not go too far into that. We'll talk about that next week. We'll leave that till then. Before I get your who you think is going to win on Saturday, one final item just happened today was that their team were announced today, because of course this is going so far under the radar. It's just not funny. The WXV 3 competition that the Irish women are in is starting on Friday. You can watch it live if you go to Rugby Pass TV and just sign up. You can sign up for free. You'll be able to watch the game live. And we have 4 Connacht players involved in the first team. On the wing, you've got Bevan Parsons and Maeve Dealey's playing fullback. So it's good to see such good involvement from 2 of the superstar players that we have in our backline. And then on the bench, you've got Aoibhinn Riley, it was great to see back to full fitness after a injury during the Interpros, alongside Nicole Fowley, who's the other half, so it's the half-back pairing on the bench. So it's great to see 4 Connacht players involved in such an important game as they take on Kazakhstan. As I say, if you sign up to Rugby Pass TV, you can stream it for free. It kicks off at 4:30 Irish time on Friday. If you're looking for something to watch before we get stuck into the big game at the weekend, so it's great to see, and we wish new coach Scott Beeman the best of luck with that squad, and with a bit of luck we'll have some of them Connacht try scorers on the Irish team that we might even have the next day, Linley, because Mac Hansen has been past fit, which is brilliant to see, and he got picked himself, and Bundy are there and Finlay on the benches. It's so wonderful that for us as Connacht fans we have so many Connacht players involved. It makes the whole Forward Proud provinces so good. But coming back to the game, you think Ireland are going to win? Or you think New Zealand are going to win? Head or heart, Linley, head or heart?
Oh, well, I actually think that Ireland are going in with the advantage.
Right.
And I know that might sound strange to some people, but I do, because Ireland have been playing so much better. And I know that New Zealand have not been, and we all know that.
Yeah.
New Zealand look kind of a shadow sometimes of the way they have played in the past.
Yeah.
So I think that Normally it's been the reverse. Normally it's been the All Blacks all going in with the confidence, 100% confidence. They're the ones to beat.
Yes.
Now it's the reverse.
Yes.
It's Ireland are the team to beat.
Absolutely.
And I think that is a really huge psychological, difference in the way that these teams are going to approach this match. Ireland have absolutely, everything to gain and nothing to lose. The All Blacks have everything, a lot to lose, because let's face it, they've been the best team in the world for so many years.
Absolutely.
But they've fallen.
Yeah.
They've fallen, in the past at the World Cup. They've never fallen, I think, at this stage.
No.
And I think, and I think that would be probably, and as we've said earlier, it's grossly unfair to two top teams to be facing each other at this stage. That, be it as it may, that's what these two teams have to face. I think if
you're hedging there, Linley. Come on, who's going to win?
Well, isn't it funny? I keep saying Ireland and I think it's because I think they can do it.
Right.
I think they really can. I actually think, hand on my heart, they have every single bit of ability to do this, and their headspace is in a much better place. At the same time, my husband actually says the All Blacks. And I think that's because he's Irish.
Yes.
Because he possibly doesn't quite believe that they
absolutely.
can do it.
Yeah.
I don't, and I've talked to lots of people who are in that position, and I think maybe it's me fearful that the All Blacks will lose as well at the same time. So
and then
as
of
I
course,
say, look, I can't lose really, can I? I'm in a great position. I take joy from whichever team wins. I would think that the All Blacks are going to have to play a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, if they're going to get past.
Yeah,
past
I
Ireland. Plus,
think
it's not just Ireland, the Ireland team. It's going to be like a home game for Ireland.
Oh,
and as you were mentioning about the fans, let's see what happens before the game, because there's going to be a haka, and how will the fans react to that?
Well, I hope that the fans will be respectful. But I have my doubts about that. I think what we're going to see, listen, this is actually really a home match for Ireland.
Absolutely.
It's a home match. And, we've all seen, the zombie anthem that's taken hold.
Yeah.
That's going to be, prevalent, I think, throughout the entire game. And I think, that's something that possibly, the All Blacks will not be used to.
Yeah.
When it comes to the haka and the anthems, I just hope that both sides respect what that is, because to New Zealand the haka is something very symbolic.
Yeah,
it's very spiritual.
Absolutely.
And I think it deserves respect. But I'm not one of those Irish fans sitting there, wanting to cheer on my team. So so look, apart from that, I think, and the anthems obviously. Look, the whole crowd is going to be it's a one-sided.
Yes.
And that's fine, because.
This should have been the Ireland World Cup, and we're making it the Ireland World Cup.
And let's face it, and teams go down to New Zealand or Australia, and they have to face the same thing.
Absolutely.
That's I think the All Blacks are pretty mature as well. At the same time, that they'll just
block it out,
zone it out. That's what professionals have to do. But it's not as easy, I think, when there is that fragility there. And there is that fear, and there is fear in All Blacks when they are on a precipice, basically, because they have such a heritage, and they represent a tiny little nation that is extremely passionate about the game, and because it's not on a world stage very often. That when it comes to this is New Zealand's world stage. Now, as I say, it has changed in recent years, but.
It still is a heritage there. There's everything there. And talking about heritage, you were pointing out to me about how the Irish might challenge the haka.
Yes, isn't it great that these World Cups and these events throw up all sorts of different things? But one answer apparently is to do the haka. Is the Irish one is the river dance haka.
Which yes, I'll put a link out, folks. It's very funny if you haven't seen it.
It is extremely funny, and I think it's just so Irish, really, isn't it? And that's what's great about these events and World Cups, because they bring out all the best. Yeah. Or mostly the best in us. They bring out our passion, they bring out our patriotism, they bring out our humour, they bring out all sorts of things, and that's what events, sporting events are all about.
Okay, that's great stuff. Thanks, Andy. We'll be back to normal next week. We'll have a Connacht team to talk about.
Very exciting.
It is.
To get back after all this time. It's been a long time coming.
It has, and then we'll have 10 or 12 weeks in a row. It's going to be brilliant. Can't wait.
Loose, cut it loose. Break out or nothing changes. Sad and confused. Don't wait until